Hi there, and welcome to the Pima Show. I'm Sherry Gyro, your host, and we are on the road at Stack's Book Club in Oro Valley. And joining me is Crispin Jeffrey-Franco, and he is a Pima Community College graduate. Welcome, Crispin.
Thank you. Thanks for visiting Stack's. We're so happy to have you here.
It smells so good in here.
Thanks.
It's also very beautiful. How long ago did you graduate from Pima?
I graduated from Pima in the early 2000s. I think I was class of 2004. Grew up in Marana, went to Marana High School, and actually left the state, went to a small liberal arts college in Iowa to play baseball and football. Things didn't go as I had planned. I ended up coming back home to Tucson and kind of knew that I needed a chance to kind of reset myself and kind of catch my breath. Enrolled at Pima and did the associate's degree in business at Pima before pursuing a bachelor's at the U of A.
Great. And so you never know where life is going to take you, right?
Absolutely, yeah.
And it took you in a direction you never thought of, did it?
Absolutely. It took me a long time to figure out that small business ownership was a thing that I wanted to do. But through life experience and formal education, yeah, here we are at Stack's 15 months into being open.
You have a deep history at Pima Community College. Tell us about it.
I do, yeah. So I started as a student, obviously. Even before that, as a high schooler, I played baseball in Edgar Soto's developmental league as a rising high school baseball prospect. But yeah, I returned back to Pima, did all of my associates work, mostly at the Northwest campus. It was like brand new at the time. And then came back in October of 2020 to be a director in the workforce development division. And so I was most previously there for just over 2 years before opening Stack's.
What did you do at workforce development?
So I was a director of business development and engagement. So I worked with employers to make sure that Pima's programs were producing the right types of talent that they needed in order to be able to grow and scale their businesses. So that was everything from the micro-credentialing program that didn't exist before I got to Pima, to starting that whole process and getting those programs developed, to helping employers set up tuition reimbursement programs to make sure that as they were attracting talent, they had ways to retain talent, especially coming out of the COVID era when it was really hard for employers to hang on to talent. People were looking for different experiences out of work. Just kind of really being that liaison between business and industry and the college was the role that I played.
And so you headed up all those parts of the workforce development at Pima?
So I was the project lead for Pima Fast Track and the micro-credentialing program. I think my second day on the job was our very first kind of kickoff call for that project, and so that was the project that I spearheaded and played the project lead on under the direction of Ian Rourke, obviously, and Amanda Avens, who's the dean at the time of workforce development and still is. But yeah, my team sort of like led the nuts and bolts, putting those pieces together in collaboration with all of the various deans and faculty that actually teach those programs.
Super impressive. And so how did you end up here? Did the workforce development and your experience with that, did it lead you to this? Kind of tell the story.
I would say yes and no in some ways. My wife and I, so my wife Lizzie and I own Stack's Book Club. We originally started thinking about this idea in 2019. We both grew up here on the northwest side of Tucson, moved away for professional and college experiences, and in the summer of 2019, after our first child was born, moved back home to be closer to family, kind of gave up our like downtown lifestyle for life in the suburbs, and through that experience started to kind of get a sense of what we felt was missing in this part of Tucson, which was sort of like a downtown-esque environment, but without having to drive 45 minutes. And so that was the sort of like first kernel of the idea, was like, we're missing something, could we be the ones to build it? At the same time, I was looking to leave corporate life and sort of be more invested in the community that I lived in. I had had such a great experience as a student at Pima. I had started to kind of hear some of the rumblings of things that were going on at Pima when I got back to town. And so I reached out to some folks that I knew that were working at the college and just kind of get a sense of what's it like to work at the college. Are people excited about what's happening? And then the opportunity in workforce development kind of popped up. Quite honestly, I didn't even know what workforce development was before seeing that job posting. Did some research and kind of felt like the skills that I possessed matched what the job was asking for. And I sort of thought having like a different perspective on higher education could be a benefit. Luckily, the team that was hiring for the position thought so too, and so I jumped in. I think the part of my experience that I've definitely parlayed into my experience here is on the side of an employer. A lot of what we were working with and kind of like pushing towards as a college while I was there was the idea of paying livable wages and getting folks out of low wage, high transition occupations and into dignified work. And so when we were building the business plan for Stacks, it was really important for us to know that we had a business model that would allow us to pay a livable wage, pay a dignified wage to our employees, and that we weren't just going to kind of be contributing to low wage, high turnover work, that we were actually creating a place where people could sustain their families, eventually move into home ownership and kind of be a more equitable employer. And so that has some business ramifications on the back end for Lizzie and I and myself as business owners. But we felt like if we were going to build a business, we wanted to make sure that we were doing it in a way that was responsible as business owners in terms of compensating our employees.
So you took those skills and that expertise that you had in the workforce development department and employed it here with your new business?
Brought it right into here in the business, and we kind of structured, how we handle our employees and how we compensate them. Really was sort of that mindset that I had kind of developed while working at Pima. The business concept itself, kind of laying the groundwork for being able to write a business plan and kind of understanding profit and loss. Those are skills that I developed decades ago at this point at Pima, and then kind of built upon at the U of A, and then eventually at ASU, where I received a Master's in Business Business Administration a couple years ago. So like the formal education paired with the real life experience, I think, is what has helped us be successful.
That's amazing. My husband, he spent 40 years in the restaurant industry, owned his restaurants, ran chains of restaurants, and I can tell you from experience, 24/7, he was there. So I assume that that's what's happening with you?
Yeah, Lizzie and I are here quite a bit, especially when we first opened. When we opened in July, she was already like 6 months pregnant. And so that first couple months was a real whirlwind of being here as much as I possibly could, making sure that the staff was supported as much as we could. And then when the baby was born, being able to take some time away. We found a little bit more balance in our lives since opening, which is really nice. That was one of the things that we were looking for was, we're not opposed to working hard, we're not opposed to working a lot, but there was something different about working for ourselves and investing in ourselves and investing in our community and building a business and a legacy that we hope our kids, whether they choose to or not, at least have the option of picking up when they, get to that point, and when we get to the point of not wanting to work anymore.
So earlier, I followed you around with the camera, got some video of you fixing the books. When I say fixing the books, I mean straightening them out and dealing with your customers, the coffee and everything. And you explained some things to me, and a lot of the product that you have in here is local.
Yeah.
And that's important to you.
Super important, yeah. When we think of this space as, like, we are one independently owned small business, but operating somewhere within the store is about 20 other locally owned businesses. Everything from the milk we source that comes from a family-owned dairy in Wilcox, to our pastries and the bagels and the coffee and the tea and sort of all of the other stuff that we sell outside of books. As much as we possibly can, we try to get that from small businesses here in the community. We think that's really important. Small businesses really do drive local economies. And so if we can use our space to help showcase and elevate other brands and help those brands grow and get more established and propel their businesses, to us, that's a win-win. It helps us draw customers in because our pastry provider is popular on Instagram. And so people see that, we sell Cal's Bake Shop, then they come here to get those. And then while they're here, they hopefully have an experience between the books and the goods and all of the other stuff. And so we thought it was really important to invest in the community as much as we can. And so anytime somebody shops here at Stacks, it's Stacks is independently owned, but there's so many other ways that you're supporting small business throughout that process.
So kind of getting back to Pima Community College, this show is very student focused.
Yeah.
We have a lot of students listening, paying attention. You're a former student. Why did you choose Pima?
I chose Pima at least in part because of the cost. When I went to, like I said, a liberal arts college in Iowa, I came home after a year with way more debt than I ever thought I would take on for college. I was a first generation college student. I didn't really know exactly what I was getting myself into when I originally left for college. And so I needed an opportunity to kind of like reset and really prepare for college. And that's what I found at Pima. The year and a half that I spent at Pima helped me lay a groundwork for success academically to go on. I know not every Pima student is looking for the 2 to 4 year transfer experience. I feel like now, having been on the other side of the Pima, spectrum and been on the, on the administration side and kind of seeing how things are put together. What I love about what the college provides to students in our community is skills that lead to jobs that are readily available right now, right here, every single day. And I think that's what Pima does really good. Is I think Pima is super receptive to what is business and industry looking for out of Pima graduates. But if you are the student that wants to take your associate's degree and transition that into a bachelor's degree, the programs are designed to do that, and the partnerships are in place to be able to easily make that transition to one of our state institutions as well.
It sure is. When it comes to, you mentioned earlier that you didn't know where life was taking you. It took you a different direction. A lot of students kind of face that right now who are going to Pima Community College, or maybe they want to go to Pima Community College, or they don't know where they're going to go. Maybe they're watching. What would you want them to know about where life takes you and why Pima would be a good choice?
Yeah, you never know where you're going to end up, right? Everyone has a plan, and I think increasingly the idea of having multiple versions of a career within your lifetime is something that we're talking more about societally and culturally, and that's great. Like, we evolve as people, our careers should evolve as we go. So if you're undecided about what your future path might be, or what your path is, and you're trying to understand, like, why is Pima asking me to take these classes that don't feel relevant to what you want to do today, you don't know where you're going in life. And so while that history class may not feel like it's the thing that you need right now, or that writing class doesn't feel like a skill that you need right now, you never know where life is going to take you. And so investing in these little opportunities to learn, develop new skill sets, at some point you might own a bookstore and you might need those things.
It's so true. I've told my kids that a million times. So what has Pima done for you that made you successful here in this bookstore cafe shop?
Yeah, I mean, I think my time,
sorry.
Yeah, no worries. I think my time at Pima really helped me understand what it was going to take to be a successful college student. I think that was a thing that I was lacking coming out of high school. High school had been relatively easy for me. I didn't really have to try that hard. I got to college and sort of realized, like, I actually kind of need to study, and I'm not sure that I know how to study. And so really spending my time at Pima and really developing some of those long-term, lifelong learning skills, those are skills that I've used every day of my life ever since. Education and learning happens in the classroom, but it also happens every single day as we interact with the world around us. And so developing the critical thinking skills, developing the problem solving skills, developing the long-term planning and thinking skills that I did as a student at Pima has helped me in the various phases of my career, and then now as a business owner. Those are things that I do every single day, and those are things that I started working on as a Pima student 20 plus years ago.
So I assume that you've had many people that you've looked up to in your past. And so is there anyone from Pima that really made a difference for you?
I think when I wish that I knew her name. When I was enrolling at Pima, I had an idea of where I wanted to get to, and I knew that I wanted to get there as fast as I possibly could. And so that very first kind of like enrollment meeting that I had 20 plus years ago, the woman that helped me sort of like plan my path through did such a good job of helping me understand, here's all the stuff that I need to do in order to successfully transition from Pima to the University of Arizona. And I was able to get my associates done in 18 months because of the efficiency of that plan. And I was actually one of 2 students that left Pima and transitioned into the Eller program my graduation year. And awesome. I really, really couldn't thank her enough. Like I said, I wish I knew what her name was. We had one conversation 20 plus years ago, but it really put me on a path to making my time at Pima as smooth and efficient as I could, and making sure that I understood where I was today and how to get to my next step without any roadblocks in the way.
Kudos to your advisor,
Yeah.
right? All right, Crispin, thank you so much for joining us. Before we go, really quick, little tradition we do here.
Okay.
Quick Polaroid of you.
Absolutely.
All right, 1, 2, 3. Okay.
Awesome.
Thank you so much for
Thank
joining
you.
us. And that is going to do it for the Pima Show.